Talk to you. You're in your French boat hole, actually, so we might start on the Racing side of it. What has been the reaction in France, and what is the feeling in France post the news that Maxime Machenaud is out? That massive blow for them.
Yeah, it was obviously very negative, Tommy. They were heartbroken for the young man, as you could understand. He's been probably the standout French player for the year in the Six Nations. He was a real stalwart, kicked well, passed well, led well, was brave, and Racing have had a great period since Christmas. They've won, I think they've only lost 3 games since Christmas, and he's been their absolute stalwart. They're in a final, and then to have that taken away through injury, and he's also going to miss the French national team's tour of New Zealand, which is obviously heartbreaking for the young man. So probably the personal side of things has overshadowed it. But this week, moving forward, I think the reality is kicking in. Having said that, I think the impending retirement of Dan Carter has also overshadowed a lot of the probably more technical and tactical areas that they'll have to overcome this weekend.
Machenaud of Racing's 8 scores against Munster. Machenaud got 6, 3 conversions, 2 penalties, and 1 try. Is it something that changes their whole game plan and their whole approach to Leinster?
It's a really interesting question, Tommy. French rugby is very different to the rest of the world in that their 9, their scrum half, which was Machenaud's or is Machenaud's position, he's the dominant character, you know, the petit general, the guy that runs the show, where in the rest of the world it's the 10. The amazing stat that Dan Carter hasn't scored a point in the championship, in the Champions Cup, because Machenaud takes everything, does everything. Now, his try was a little cheeky because Teddy Thomas was over the line, kissed the ball and passed the Machenaud over the line. But it doesn't dilute your point. He was their man. And French rugby has a history of this right back to Pierre Barbizier, Fabien Galtier. These are magnificent 9s, Freddie Michalak, that dominate the game. So, yes, it does. Now, his replacement is a lovely young player called Teddy Iribaren. But he's a runner. He's a different sort of player. He can kick, but I think the kicking duties will not go to him. We're still waiting to see what their team is. We're not sure how that'll go, whether Carter will start now because of that kicking demands that will be required. So they're definitely going to have to change the way they play their game because of this injury to their best player. And there's no other way of saying it. They've lost their best player by a considerable margin.
And he's quite a small guy, the replacement. He's only like 12 stone. Is that right?
Yeah, he's a tiny little fella. He's lightning quick. I've seen him play some top 14 games. I haven't really studied him because you weren't sort of expecting him to be there, you know. So I can't say that I'm an expert on his performances, but I do know he's lightning quick. He runs a lot. He poses a very different threat to what Machenaud does, which won't be bad for Racing, because I think if they just keep passing back to their 10, the Leinster defence will eat them up. I think they have to bring something different. So there could be some blessings there. But it's the first 20 minutes. What Racing do very, very well is they come out in that first 20 and they do score points, like they did against Munster. Now, Munster were the architects of their own defeat, in my opinion. So we've got to take that game a little bit into keep it into consideration to the side. But Racing are scoring a lot of points in that first 20, but a lot of it has been off the boot of Machenaud. They're not scoring necessarily a lot of tries, but they do score a lot of points. So whoever comes in to replace him as the kicker, if they miss those first couple of kicks, it might be a very difficult day for Racing, because the French clubs are not as fit as the Irish clubs. Now, that doesn't mean they're not fit men. They're not, they're out smoking and drinking. That's not what we mean. The differences between fitness at this level, Tommy, it's very minute. But the Irish teams are extremely well conditioned. A lot of that's because they can be rested for some periods of time during the year, and they get a lot of extra conditioning during that time. So people think they don't get rest and they go off and have holidays. you're not playing so that you can train hard for 6 days that week. You don't have to taper for the game. Where the French players have to play every week. Even during the Six Nations, these players were back playing for their clubs on many occasions. This year was a little bit better for the French national guys. But because they play so many games, they don't get that time off. And the last 20 minutes of the game, I see the French teams tiring a lot more than the Irish teams. So if Racing can't score in the first 20, they'll really pay a big price in that last 20.
And that's been a huge talking point coming into this game, that very point you make there, but the fact that Racing are battling away in the French league to hold on to their second place in their home semi-final. Leinster, the last time we saw them was in that extraordinary game at the sports ground, where absolutely completely different team, and very few of the players who will be involved on Saturday were playing that day against Connacht, where they lost 47-10. But you know, it's only maybe twice since before the Six Nations that the top Leinster team have lined out together in the quarterfinal and the semi-final. Can you continue the momentum as a team with that sort of disruption and with those sort of gaps between all playing together?
Gee, another great question, Tommy, isn't it? How long's a piece of string? You want to rest your boys, you don't want to overplay them, but every player will tell you need to play. Having said that, that Connacht game, there was another factor there. There was nothing on the line for Leinster except failure. And, you know, players are human beings. Everyone would have thought, I don't want to get injured here. The semi-finals are coming up. We've got a final of Europe. We could have 2 finals. We have 2 trophies. I'm at the sports ground. There's nothing on this game. I don't want to get injured. And the players wouldn't have said, well, I'm not going to try. But they're human beings. It's in the back of their head. And I was talking to a few of the old Leinster guys that weekend, and we all said, of all the places you don't want to be on the planet, that weekend, the sports ground is top of your list, because Connacht saved their best for Leinster. That's their tradition. They want to come out and smack their big brother, and they generally do pretty well. They got a good record, and they pounded them. But you know that's going to be the question that's going to be answered on Saturday. Are Leinster underdone? Have they had too much rest? Or are they primed for it? My gut feeling, Tommy, is they're primed. They're ready. And after the long season they've had, the Six Nations, they've had 17 guys involved in the Six Nations. So they've played a lot of rugby. They're ready for this. I don't personally, I certainly hope it's not, and I don't believe it will be a problem. And
if you look at, I'm guessing you're basing that on what we have seen from them in those 2 appearances since the Six Nations, the quarter-final win over Saracens and the Scarlets game. Different challenges, different opposition, and they just seem to have dialed in tactically brilliantly on both occasions, a perfect game plan, and executed it. I mean, Leinster fans are travelling to Bilbao incredibly confident, with the natural fears of complacency that brings. Where are the dangers for Leinster?
Tommy, I think as Irish rugby supporters, we have to start changing the way we think. If you look at what the national team did at Twickenham, they didn't go to Twickenham and punt high and hope for the best. They didn't go and say, we'll give it a lash. They went with intent to win the game. And I've said it before to you that I think that game changed the way we have to perceive Irish national teams and Irish rugby. And the fact that there are 17 guys in the Leinster side who were part of that match day team that won so brilliantly at Twickenham, I think they'll be going to Bilbao not thinking, oh, we'll give it a lash, we'll try hard. They're going there with intent to win. They are the best team in Europe by a considerable margin. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about this today because I knew we were having a chat, and I don't want to overstate it, but I can't quite recall a final where one team has been so far in front of the other as favourites since Leinster played Ulster. And that day, I'd coached both teams, and I knew what the result was going to be because Ulster were at the beginning. They're on a curve there. We're on a separate topic there. They failed terribly. Their whole internal organisation has been disastrous since that day. They should have kicked on and made another final a year or so later. But Leinster demolished Ulster that day. Racing are a team of individuals. That's their threat, Tommy. That they're very good defensively, very well organised defensively, but they don't have the structures that Leinster have. And you touched on it before. When Leinster went to Sandy Park to play Exeter, they got down dirty and they just dug in. It was trench warfare. It was as physical as it gets. And usually on those physical days, traditionally English teams win because they're the bigger guys. They're all these things, all the stereotypes that are no longer relevant, everyone had in their head. Leinster came out and smashed them. They took on Saracens, the champions. Everyone said all the things that Saracens had. They changed their game plan. They smashed them. They took on Montpellier away. I was at that game in France. And everyone's saying, well, there's nothing on this game. Leinster, they'll lose. They still got a home quarter. There's nothing there. No way. They made a statement. We're Leinster. We're going to win this. We don't drop our standards. They took Montpellier apart. Now, they finished first in the top 14. They're no mugs. They haven't had a bad side. And then they take on Scarlets, who are the great counter-attacking side, all the wonderful things we know that Scarlets can do, beautiful rugby, joyous to watch. They weren't in the game. They were not there at the park. Leinster have been absolutely exceptional this year. And I'm not saying it because I'm a Leinster man. I'm delighted because I am a Leinster man, but I'm not. If they weren't playing well, I'd tell you. They have been an absolute joy to watch. They richly deserve to be favourites. I really hope they can win because they deserve it. If they don't win, it'll be a grave injustice. But we shouldn't take anything away from the magnificence of the way they've played. They've been heavyweights, they've been lightweights, they've played running rugby, they've played dirty rugby. It's been a joy to watch. And Saturday's going to be tough, mate.
Yeah.
Because the forecast down here, I'm currently about 2 hours north on the Basque Coast, and tomorrow's going to be beautiful. Going to be 26 degrees. I might get an hour on the beach if I'm lucky and get a surf in. But Saturday's going to be 15 degrees and bucketing rain. Right. So they're going to have to earn.
Well, I don't feel too sorry for you, Matt. We have to leave it there. What could possibly...
I can't imagine you would, Tommy. I'm not looking for sympathy.
Exactly. Great stuff as always, Matt. What could possibly go wrong? The message from Matt Williams there to Leinster fans. We'll hear from Matt on the show early next week, presumably, according to his insight anyway, reviewing a Leinster win. We'll have to see how it pans out. Brian O'Driscoll will be on the show tomorrow. He'll be talking about the Leinster team selection, the James Lowe, Jameson Gibson Park, Scott Fardy, 2 into 3 can't go conundrum as well. Now, tomorrow morning, something a little bit different coming your way. It's the exclusive first showing of a mini documentary called Music Came First that Off the Ball have put together in association with Vodafone. Interesting one, this. It's all about Robbie Henshaw, but it's about his love for music. In case you didn't know it, he's pretty handy on the box accordion and comes from a family steeped in traditional Irish music. It features Robbie himself, his family and Sharon Shannon. You can get that on OTB AM tomorrow from 7:45 on offtheball.com and all the show's social channels as well. It's an exceptional insight into Robbie away from rugby, so don't miss out on that. Now, it's still scoreless between West Ham and Man United. Up next, it's a football show with John O'Shea and Chris Houghton.
The Newstalk app is Newstalk in your pocket. Download it now.
On May 25th, we're being asked to vote in a referendum on the regulation of termination of pregnancy. At the moment, Article 40.3.3 of the Constitution means that it is not